I'll explain our Savings for Life program is our savings-led microfinance, and I'll explain a little bit about that. But I'm not sure how much you know of World Relief, so here's just some of the basics of who we are and what we stand for. And what we do. World Relief has, part of their work is the U.S., and you probably will know that they are doing a lot with the refugee resettlement project here. They're one of 10 organizations, 10 or 11, I'm not sure, who are approved by the U.S. government to receive refugees when they come and they get resettled. So get a large government grant to be doing that sort of work, and are in the U.S. mainly involved in church advocacy and refugee resettlement. Also some anti-trafficking work is done. And what I know more is about our international programs. Here are the countries where we're working. And China and Zambia, we just have partnerships, so we don't have a full World Relief office there, but we work in partnership there. And then just as some very broad departments, so to speak, we're working in maternal and child health, which includes everything from child survival, child development, HIV/AIDS, orphans and vulnerable children programs. We even do some like water projects in some places, disaster response, and then the economic development unit, which I'm a part of, and the economic development unit has three main sides: agriculture, microfinance, and savings, which I just deal with savings, but there's a lot of overlap between the programs. And World Relief has been starting microfinance institutions around the world and is still involved in a lot of those institutions. Urwego is one of the largest microfinance institutions in the world in Rwanda, and we started it and have now turned over a lot of the operations to Opportunity International. So it used to be called Urwego something, now it's called Urwego Opportunity Bank. And I think when I was a student, I always thought, oh, I want to work at Urwego, and now I have a bank account at Urwego. Yeah, so we have microfinance institutions in East Africa, and we have one in Cambodia. We did have one in Liberia, but we've kind of been pulling out of that as well. And World Relief has really started to say they want to focus on savings, which is really exciting because that's where I'm working, and we'll go more into that. But before we do, I wanted to talk about World Relief's new initiative, which is Integral Mission. And Integral Mission is more or less the operating system of how we run our programs. And a lot of organizations, Christian organizations, are either Christian on the website and then not at all in the field, or they're so Christian in the field that there's like no technicality about them. And this is World Relief's, and World Relief has done the pendulum swing between those. And where we're at now, our CEO fully believes in having high-quality programs that competes with any secular organization, but that really holds on to the heart and soul, the core belief of Jesus Christ and his supremacy, that being shown in the field as well. And what does that mean in programs? There is a huge jump there from just, you can put it on a website and make it sound nice and pretty, but when it gets to the field, what does that mean? And that's where we're kind of wrestling with now. So I just want to read this as it's kind of the explanation of what our Integral Mission approach is. Integral Mission is the proclamation and demonstration of the gospel. It is not simply that evangelism and social involvement are to be done alongside each other. Rather, in Integral Mission, our proclamation has social consequences as we call people to love and repentance in all areas of life. And our social involvement has evangelistic consequences as we bear witness to the transforming grace of Jesus Christ. And my mission for our savings program, we are using a methodology that CARE is using and Oxfam is using, CRS. A lot of big secular organizations are using it. My mission, my desire, has always been that we are distinctly different because we are a Christian organization. So what does that mean? How do the people in our program look any different from the people in other secular organizations? And why are we doing it? What are the consequences of the work that we're doing? And it's been there's a process, and we're still kind of mid-flow in all of this, so I'm sharing stuff that's like so raw that it probably shouldn't be sharing because don't have it quite figured out yet. But just as like, this is why we're doing it. we work for sustainability, economic well-being of the vulnerable, not because we want to share the gospel with them, but we do it because Jesus would do it, that he cares for the poor, and just in the action of taking part of it, we are fulfilling the gospel. But I personally believe that it doesn't stop with that, right? Like, we have to use our words as well. So how is our program presenting people differently, or how is the information being presented? How are we working with the local church? So it's not World Relief coming and doing a program, but the local church is taking ownership and doing the work. So this is kind of the operating system of where we're working, and it's really exciting to be at World Relief at this time because they're trying to do this and honestly trying to be distinctly Christian in the work that they're doing, which to me was really important. Since I started my career as a missionary, I still call myself a missionary first and a development worker second. I'm on my church bulletin board with a string going to Africa, and I feel like this is the calling that God has placed on my life, on believers, but also wanting to do it with really high technical expertise. And so it's great to work with World Relief, who values both of those. So, what does integral mission look like in the field? This is a case study from Rwanda, where I live, and our Rwanda team is kind of piloting what we call the Church Empowerment Zone. And this is a way to bring the program, so it's not just World Relief marching in and saying, you need clean water, you need child survival project, but to have the church really come alongside to say, this is what we, as the pastors and the community here, see as a need in our area, and this is what we have to do to work against it or to participate in that. So we start with having church empowerment zones and interdenominational committees, which bring together all the pastors in the local area. So kind of trying to bring together everyone, so it's the big C church of this community. And as they come together and do a sort of mindset transformation training, and I'm not sure what your experience has been in the field, but it's really common where you start working with in a community and people say, we are poor, we need you to help us, we need you to give us things. And we want to say, no, you have such skills and abilities, and what do you have already that you can participate in the needs that you can identify in your area? So that's part of all of that. And from this training, they identify both their assets of what they have, but also needs that they want to try and work against. And it's really common, of course, for the church to identify poverty as one of the weaknesses in their area of how they want to start helping in their community. So this is where we start to say, okay, you have identified this need, let's have this be a church-initiated program. And so we will start with, often, savings is a really easy one to start with, but then we start to link to other programs, and that's where savings has been linked to agriculture or microfinance, and we're also doing in this realm some of the maternal child health programs as well. So, any questions on all of that so far? This is kind of just like the operating system of World Relief, how we're doing some work, and then I'm going to talk about our savings program.
Interdenominational, is that just Christian denominations? Or?
Yeah, so we work with the evangelical church. In Rwanda, it's primarily evangelical, so the Catholic Church is one of the largest churches, and they're included in the work that we're doing. But we work primarily with like Baptist and Pentecostal and whatever, but it's not supposed to be exclusive, and we've been challenged to include other faiths or religions. In Rwanda, it's just not that common. There might be a mosque in a province, but there's like one, not like one per community. So probably because we've tested it in an area where it's predominantly evangelical, that's where the population is going to work.
Courtney, what's the budget for World Relief?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if I can say overall because I don't know the U.S. programs, but international programs, each country has an operating budget around $1 million to $2 million per year. And the program I work with, as I design the program. I like to have about $100,000 per year per country. That's kind of the budgets that we're trying to raise to do this sort of work.
I think our overall is 42 million.
Thanks. So now, what is Savings for Life? This is what I do. Did you guys start taking microfinance? Okay, so who can impress the rest of the class and tell us what an Aska is? Have you learned the difference, what an Aska is or what a Raska is and the difference between the two? Not yet.
Is it Community Savings and Credit Association?
Yeah, Accumulated Savings and Credit Association. And do you know Raska?
Rotating.
Yeah. So Raska, just in like very basic terms, a Raska is 10 people come together bringing $1. One person walks home with all $10. The next week they bring $1. Someone else walks home with all $10. And Aska is where it's a bit more complicated, and people can bring varying amounts. You can take a loan if you want. But both of these have been seen in the local community for generations and generations and generations. There's different forms and different variations, but Savings for Life is built upon what has been traditionally seen and practiced. And there's a set value for savings that the groups themselves determine, and then they have access to loans. We'll go through like the whole characteristics of it. But Savings for Life is mainly a way to smooth out someone's income or to strengthen their position. So it's not, microfinance really tends to focus on people growing, jumping into a new economic strata, building up their business. That happens, but on a very small scale for savings. This is a way to build up someone's safety net. People living, as you know, people living on $1 per day. It's not like they are given $1 per day. So in the harvest season, they might have a lot of money. In the planting season, they have little money, and they're forced to make consequences, choices during that time that if they had some savings or something built up, they might be able to fall back on. So this is what the Savings for Life program does. And we do see income generating activities out of this, but they're very small scale because we're working on a small amount of savings. And we're following the Village Savings and Loan Association methodology, which is also VSLA. This was developed by CARE in the 90s. Basically, there was a volunteer in Niger, and she saw women going to an Aska and fighting because someone was given a loan when they didn't want the loan, and someone didn't bring as much money as they were supposed to bring. And there was just all this like bickering, and she was like, let's just make some rules here. Let's make up some things we can all agree to. And that was the beginning of VSLA. And from that time until now, it's been modified and changed and grown over the years. And VSL Associates is a consultation group that really has documented this, and so they have on their website a whole field manual that you can go print it, take it to the field, and start implementing this program. They also have developed management information systems, so you can collect key metrics, and because World Relief, along with these other organizations, are all using the same management information system, we're able to compare our metrics with other organizations, so we can see how we're doing compared to others working in the same country or in the region or in the world. Nice. And yeah, it helps us to say like we're kind of working in the same realm as a lot of other organizations. But for me, again, I want to run a program that is highly technical and is making amazing impacts in people's lives, but I want to do it in a way that is distinctly Christian. And what that looks like is kind of still information, but my vision is to have World Relief would be the best faith-based implementer of savings programs. So that's kind of where we're going. And how we're getting there. This is a bit of the methodology. This is a group meeting. I think this is in Malawi, where we have some savings groups. Each group has 10 to 25 people, and the members are self-selected, which is hugely important. I also should say I'm the only American on staff with the savings program. Every country office has a program manager, and all of our field staff are locals. So I'm kind of an outside consultant that comes to support the program manager, but everything that is seen in the field is done by national people who know the community and the culture and the language. But the aspect of self-selection is really important because World Relief doesn't go and say, you people, you are going to start saving your money together. Because obviously money is a sensitive issue. You have to have trust and huge amounts of accountability with the people you're with. So we present the program and ask people if they want to join, that they choose people that they can be with. We give them some guidelines, like they should live close enough to other people so that they can walk and not have a difficulty in attending meetings. They should also be in the same economic level with other people because the amount that they can save is in a range. So it has to be low enough that the poorest person can still contribute, but high enough that the richest person is satisfied with the amount that they can save. So self-selection is a hard and fast principle that we follow. And the groups themselves are trained by community-based agents, and there's a 9-month cycle that we follow. And it's fairly rigid and documented, and I like kind of order kind of things, so I like that. But this is the calendar that we follow, and over the course of approximately 9 months, the group is meeting, and every week they meet, and the black squares are when the trainer gives them a lesson, and the lesson, like the first lesson is on the group, the leadership, electing the leadership committee, that sort of thing. So we have different lessons, and then some weeks that the trainer attends the meeting but does not actively teach anything, is there to observe and to help them if they've kind of gone off of what they've already learned. So they have their first day for savings. A month later they do their first loan. They can take loans if they want. A month later they would have their first loan repayment. And then over the course of time, the trainer is attending less often. And by the end, the maturity phase, the group is really self-sufficient. They can stand alone. Any trouble that is coming up within the group, they're able to manage on their own. And by the end of the year, the cycle that we work with them, once they graduate, that would be our indication that they are now at a level that they can start again if they choose to, and we don't need to continue working with them. And at the end of the year, they would receive all of their savings back, which I'll talk about in just a second. So they have a 5-person leadership committee, and out of the 5, 3 must be women. Just traditionally, about 75% of the program is made up of women, so it's not hard to ask for 3 of the leadership positions to be women. But in the African culture that I know, it's really common for the women to defer to men. Even if there's 20 women in the group and 5 men, they would say, oh, the men, they must be the leader. And we say, no, you women, you can also do this. And we would ask them to put a woman, these are probably the top 2 positions. We would ask them to put a woman in one of those roles. Yeah, so that's one way that it works for women's empowerment naturally within the program, but also we try and reinforce it with that. So they write their own constitution, they write their own policies. We give them a framework, things to think about. We would ask them, how much interest would you like to charge? Other groups in your area are charging this. And so we give them sort of the framework that they fill in the blanks on that. This is the box that they use. This is the bank, so to speak. This is one of our boxes in Kenya. And this is what's inside the box. So each member has a passbook, which I have a picture of that in a bit. Money is stored in little bags. There's 3 locks, and 3 different people will have keys. A 4th person will have the box. And all of the passbooks are recorded by stamping, so someone who's illiterate would still be able to understand how much money they have. All transactions take place. Having accountability and transparency in the group is one of the keys for success. Oh boy. Okay. So when it comes back up, I'll show the other pictures of the passbook and things like that. But the transparency that is required people are trusting each other with their money, right? And so in order to show that, we have built-in policies of you have to stand and watch the people stamping and you take your book back with you. And there's things that we try and put in that would ensure that, and we also try and train it within the groups that they would be able to manage all of that on their own. let me come back to, I'll talk about some of the impacts of the program, and then we'll come back if this decides to boot up again. No.
No, Windows was updating. And chooses to do so at 12:35 in the afternoon.
As it should. So this program, we've only been running Savings for Life since 2008. We started piloting in Burundi, and we relaunched our savings program using this methodology in Kenya and Rwanda in 2010. So we're fairly new in this whole realm. But that's also great because we're not so set in our ways that now we're kind of making changes and being able to do things. But you typically start seeing impacts of programs like this after 2.5 to 3 years. So once someone has been in the program for so long, then you're able to start seeing these impacts. So there's some natural occurring impacts, like people say that there's more harmony in their home because the stress of money and all that has been alleviated. People are able to go to school more. Their family are using the money that they've received for loans, and all their savings they'll take out when school fees are due, so they're able to pay for their children's education. And so we see better health, more children attending school, harmony in marriage. There's just like so many impacts on a very small scale. And sorry, let me start this. As this is coming up, I'll just share a story from what recently happened in Congo. We started our program in DR Congo, and in November, December, there was a lot of rebel activity that created quite a crisis in that region. And I felt quite responsible for what was happening because we recently started our program. And I hired 3 women and sent them out to the field, in the field where rebels were coming and kind of destroying lives and raping women and all the rest. So we evacuated our field staff down to the capital city, and the savings group themselves actually disbanded because people were internally displaced, and so they were running over it. They literally dug holes in the ground and took their box and buried it in the ground. And in January, some peace kind of restabilized, I suppose, and people came back, and all of our groups, we only had 24, so it's not a huge number, but all of our groups came back, and not a single dollar was missing from anyone's group, and they were able to finish the cycle successfully, and all the groups graduated, and were able to say that how amazing this program has been to help them in this time that not only did they have their money, they knew that they could fall back on this money, but then they also had the social cohesion and the social capital built from this program. So that was really exciting to see. Okay, so our savings take place in the form of share purchases, and each group will set what is considered a share value. This is an example from Tanzania, where one share value is 500 shillings. So you can see someone in 1 week save 500, next week they save 1,000, and then the rest of it would be blocked off. People are able to take out their savings if they want to, but they would not receive interest on that over the time. This is in Maasai area of Kenya, and this woman has saved 5 shares every time. And it's like, oh man, when you see them and they're like doing this, and just feel like such a sense of satisfaction and empowerment when they, it's really fun to see. So here's information about the loans. You can take 3 times the amount of your savings. The loan term is 3 months, and it's repaid with the service charge that that's interest that the group sets. And all of that interest goes back to the common pool of money that they are able to grow. We have a social fund, which is a form of microinsurance that the group does on their own. They set policies at the beginning of the year of, like, if a group member has a child, they will receive so much money. If a group member has a fire in their house, they will receive so much money. So they have kind of their statement ahead of time, and then as emergencies come up, they pool from this money that they each contribute each week as a form of microinsurance, which is a neat addition to the program because there's no form of insurance in the rural areas like that. So then our share out, our graduation, is, this is the graduation in Rwanda, and this is about $2,000 that's here. And it's so fun when you go to a graduation because the group at the beginning will say, like, we can't do this, can't you just help us, can you give us some money to get started? And at the end they say, this is all our money, we did this. And it's so fun to see the empowerment that they feel at the end of the time. So at the end, we count up all the money that's come in from savings, from loans, from interest. They have some fines, like if you come late, you get to pay a fine. If your cell phone rings, you have to pay a fine. I get charged fines every time I come late. It's like, hey, African culture, right? I got charged a fine once because I had a translator who was like telling me what was happening, and they said, you guys are talking, you have to pay a fine. But it's actually quite good when they do that, because it says that they're not intimidated, and these are their rules, and you're not following their rules, so you need to contribute. I'm always happy when I get charged. So we count up all that money, and we count up how many shares have been purchased by all the groups, and divide the number. And initially, if the savings value was 500, now when we divide it out, the share value is like 625 or something. And so then everyone receives back in a portion their dividend of their interest and the fines and all their savings. So this is a woman in Rwanda. This is her quote: "Where I'm standing, it is my land, bought for 80,000 francs. I will buy another one in the second cycle of savings." Just such a sense of empowerment, of like, this is what I've done. Commonly seen. This is also another group from Rwanda, and the group themselves decided that all the women who are wearing yellow are members, and they decided to do 3 things. Every family needed another mattress, and every family needed some cooking pots, and then they just wanted some uniforms because they wanted to be cool. So they decided, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to work that everyone's going to receive these items. So out of the money that they were putting together, they used some of that money to purchase these items for everyone. So this was on their graduation day. The last few people were receiving their items. And it was just such a sense of joy that they wanted to have uniforms to testify to the community of like, look at how cool we have become and all this fun stuff that we're able to do. We are women who are powerful. And we often have group names for like Women on the Move. Yeah, so that's this group. This is a Maasai lady in Kenya. I just thought the joy there was beautiful. And I just have, before I get to question and answers, 2 quick plugs. I don't know if you've heard about the fast train that's coming on.
They're laughing because we're organized.
Okay. Well, so when I come to the Baltimore office at World Relief, I sit on the opposite side of the cubicle of the FAST people. So she was like, "You're going to Easton tomorrow? Can you tell them about this train?" So you should really do it, because I think it will be really great. And then, if you haven't found your internship yet, or if you know people who are looking for internships, there's tons of internships available within World Relief. And specifically, we need a Savings for Life intern who is going to come live with me in East Africa. So come to East Africa, come help. There's information from our internship coordinator, whose name is Hannah, so if you want any information. The website for internship, all of that is here, and her contact card is here. So feel free to take that, and then my contact card is here as well. So what questions do you have about World Relief or Savings for Life or anything in that realm?
What are loans typically used for? In the example of the field, or are there other typical examples of how they use loans?
Yeah, we don't require that all the loans are used for income generating activities. So some people will use the loan for like just household consumption or paying school fees or things like that. The groups actually will decide what loans can and can't be used for. So a group might decide, if someone wants to take a loan to make beer, is that okay? Is it not okay? So they make those decisions, and we kind of, again, give them the framework that they make some of those. And they also will set a priority list, and some of the groups will say, people who want to pay school fees with a loan, that's our top priority. So if you are going to take a loan for that, that's great. But you know, they have this common pool of money, and if everyone in the group wants money, the money's going to run out that week before everyone can take it. So they have to have some sort of prioritization of who should take money, what is it going to be used for? And so they kind of rank things on that. But commonly, we see school fees and income generating activities. Sometimes that's long-term things like farm, investments in their farm, which obviously can't be repaid in 3 months because typically maize and other crops are much longer harvest time. But they would have another means to repay. And we find that people, I mean, I don't know if you've read Portfolios of the Poor, but people are great managers of money, and they will know, I have this stack of maize. I could sell it now and pay those school fees, or I could take a loan and sell this maize in 3 months and get so much more money that I'm going to do that. So there's a lot of differences, but commonly it's income generating activities and school fees. Sometimes you see it for like health reasons, but or just normal household consumption, but typically it's business or school.
So quick question. At the beginning, I'm just not sure if I understood it right. You kind of talked about like microfinance and then savings for life. Are those like 2 distinct programs, full relief, and then
Yeah.
how do they differ?
Yeah, so our microfinance program, our microfinance institutions are like a bank. Tellers, you walk up, you have accounts, it's very organized. Our savings program is very rural and community managed. So they're distinctly different, and we have, like I'm the technical person for savings, and we have a separate technical person who works on microfinance. And I think when I was at Eastern, I thought, oh, microfinance. But I think I love the grassroots work with the community, and so it's really great that I'm not thinking about portfolio at risk and all these like high-level computations of real microfinance. I get to work with the people and get to go to their meetings and talk with them about how their group is going. And then, yeah, I do a lot of analysis of data and stuff like that, part of the job. But it's a lot more grassroots, you can say, and savings typically reaches a level of poverty deeper than microfinance institutions, simply because it's just not profitable for microfinance institutions to work with the very poor or people who are in really rural areas. So most people who are part of our savings program, they just don't have any other opportunity to be part of some sort of formal financial institution because it's so far away and it's not possible for those institutions to reach that area.
Are there issues for repayment? And if so, how do group members handle members that don't repay?
Yeah, so our repayment is like over 99%, and that's because we try to instill a lot of the transparency, accountability. The self-selection is huge because it's embarrassing if my neighbor knows I'm not going to repay. And also I know if I've taken a loan, that means that my neighbor can't take her loan until I've repaid mine. So all of that kind of fosters an environment where there's not much of a problem with it, but there is some. And we just kind of train the groups that it's their responsibility to handle it, and how they want to handle that is a little bit up to them, but we give some guidelines. Like we don't want to see a family worse off because of this program. But one of the reasons we have the requirement of 3 times the amount of your savings as the maximum of your loan. So you have that collateral of 1/3 of your savings amount that could pay off part of your debt. So that would be their first response, is to take that. And then we have some groups who would just write off the rest. If a group member takes a loan and then passes away, for example, would they expect the family to then pay if in that person's absence? So there's a lot of variations, you can say, but we don't have a huge number of delinquent loans just because of the high level of accountability. So, and then the groups manage them on their own. Yeah, I don't hear too many cases of like, what are we going to do? And the amount of loans are so small that it's not like someone took $2,000 and how are we going to repay that with all of our money? Because there's a limit of how much they can pay.
Courtney, could you explain, I might have missed it, what exactly is graduation? What does that mean? What happens before and after?
Yeah, so the graduation is our symbol to the group and to ourselves that we've been for 9 months training, walking with this group, sending a trainer. And after graduation, now they're on their own and they can decide if they're going to start again or if they're going to just completely disband.
And start again would mean
Yeah, so it's also, we also call it the share out. So the whole year they're buying shares of savings. And at graduation, they receive all of the money they put into their box, into their bank. So it's their, all their savings plus any of the dividends that they've earned. So at graduation or share out, the box is now empty. And so it's kind of like, now we're going to start afresh. Do we want to come back and reform as a group and start again from zero? Or are we going to say, well, that was nice, but thank you, we're going to now leave. So we have about, yeah, almost all of our groups start again because they've seen the value of this group. And it's so common to what they've been doing for generations and generations that it's just common to have a group like this going. So after the graduation, we consider them to be now self-managed, so we no longer send our trainer to follow them or to collect metrics on their group, but we would just assume that they're still working. And in the African culture, you never actually just walk away. So like they keep up relationships, and our community-based trainer might still visit the group, but not in a training capacity, just to kind of see how things are going.
Do you have percentages of those who do in fact continue?
Yeah, so we try and follow our groups, and it's about 95% of the groups that are still functioning after 3 years. So,
So how is this different than what they were doing traditionally before World Relief came and trained them on their particular model?
yeah. Well, I guess I can't say because I don't know what every person would be doing, but the traditional model of a Raska or an Aska is less sophisticated, if I can say that. Like we have a constitution and rules they follow, and the format of the meetings and the way the trainer kind of runs the meetings and teaches them to run the meetings is unique to the Savings for Life program. But the aspect of coming together and saving money as a group, that's the thing that is kind of common that goes throughout all the different types of groups. So there might be some groups that have done programs where they put money together. Oh, we're really technical difficulties on my computer today. There might be some groups that have done like higher level with like taking loans, but traditionally what is happening is that people just do the Raska where you just kind of come together and everyone brings $1 and someone works in with all of them. I was walking around the Mathari community in Kenya and was trying to get a feel for what people are doing informally for their financial practices. And I met with a lady who, this is what she did. There's one person, their full-time job is to walk from house to house to house, and she knows which houses that she needs to go to, and she collects their savings every day. And so every day I think she does 2 lots. So let's say one lot is 50 shillings. So she puts in 100 shillings every day. And she knows when in the month it's going to be her turn to get the money. So I was just like trying to find out from her, like, how is it going? Have you had any problems with this? Would you be receptive to a more formal program where it's you can save variation? You don't have to save 50 or 100 shillings every day. You could save 50 or 100 or 150. Kind of like you can have a range. And she said, yeah, you know, sometimes I only have 80 shillings, and so I give her 80 shillings, but then I'm 20 short, and that causes a problem. And then sometimes when it's my turn to get the money, I'm expecting to get like 3,000 shillings, but because some people didn't give their full amount today, I only got 2,500, and I was expecting 300 or 3,000. So like so those are some of the common problems that you would see in a more traditional, locally run. So ours is like trying to mitigate some of those problems that are being seen and give the flexibility to the group member, but ensuring some more of the common practices that would ensure success.
A lot of agencies are always looking at their various models for the ability to scale up. So when you look at this model with World Relief, and you have seen other models with other organizations, how does it, what are your ratios between how many numbers of community development people that you've got that have to go around and manage them, to how many actual savings groups they can manage feasibly?
Yeah, I didn't talk at all about like our staffing structure, but I'll do that briefly. On a country level, there would be one project manager who would be based in like the country's home office, and that project manager would work with what we call field officers. And the field officers are now based in the field, probably with the high school level education. They're paid by World Relief or paid by the program. And initially, they will start by training groups, savings groups, and they will give them that methodology, meet with them following the calendar that I showed you. And about 6 months into that process, they'll look at the group and say, who really understands this methodology and who has a heart or a passion to help us to continue to spread it. And they'll select from that group a village agent. And the village agent is now an unpaid volunteer who now the village agent goes off and starts savings groups.
Okay.
Once the program gets big enough, you introduce another level of supervisor, and the supervisor would also be based in the field, a little higher level of education than high school, but also be paid by the program. So the best practices would say one supervisor can manage about 5 to 8 field officers, one field officer can manage about 5 to 8 village agents, and one village agent could handle 7 to 10 savings groups per year. So initially you start off kind of project manager, field officers, then you quickly introduce village agents because that's when you really can start scaling up. So when I design budgets, I'm looking at the salary, how many positions do I have, that will dictate what our target number is going to be for savings groups. And then because our savings groups are 10 to 25 members, I always use the number 20 as like an average. We typically have about 23 members, but here's a key lesson, always under promise and over serve. So I always budget for less people, but then we know we're gonna reach above our target number. So once you have village agents, then you really start expanding. But then you have to be considering the level of work that you're anticipating from a volunteer. And this is where, with Integral Mission, working alongside the church and trying to make this as a ministry of the church, having these people be seen as, this is a ministry that I'm giving back to the church, it does ensure that people have a spirit of volunteerism and continue on. And then, of course, we have some levels where there's some quality assurance and metrics being taken from different levels here.
Good.
I just have one question. You mentioned earlier the linkage to other programs, and I was just recently listening to a talk, and the person was saying that for financial services to actually have the desired impact that people want them to have, they need to be able to link with other programs really effectively. So I was just wondering if you could practically talk about what that looks like on the field and how you do that in a way that ensures that those different programs are all complementing one another.
Yeah. So one thing about the savings program is that it's very simple, and in some ways you don't want to mess with the simplicity of that. But at the same time, you have 25 captive people. So if you want to give a health message, this is ideal. Come to every Tuesday at 1 o'clock, and 25 people are going to be sitting here. Give them your health messaging, and then you've reached 2 targets in one go. So we've kind of done this little dance about how do you link some of these programs together. We commonly see it with agriculture because we get a lot of our grants have come with the food security sort of route, and then I'm always put in savings. So then we kind of put in a little budget for savings and we get it started. But now we're targeting the same population who, they might be farmers in a farmers association doing a co-op, and now we're asking them to self-select and be part of this. So in one part of their life, the intervention is teaching them better farming techniques and helping them have better access to markets, because they're in this co-op, and then the savings is helping them to smooth out their income and build up their safety net. So in my opinion, it's awesome to link some of these programs because you are just making the picture more round, you're filling in more areas where you can assist and help raise up their livelihood. But you have to be really careful that you don't just overburden them, and now you are meeting with them like 6 days a week because they're doing this with you and doing this with you, and trying to plug in every single program with the same target population. So there's a little bit of a balance there, but one thing that we try to do is with working with the church is really to find out from them what is the need and where are the programs that you want to see come together, so that it's not like, well, we have this grant, so we had to get so many people going, It's that kind of responding to what's been communicated from the field.
How about biblical integration? How about the faith integration in this work? Because it's so critical to integral mission. But from the village, village agents on down, how does that manifest itself practically?
Yeah, that's that's where my key work has been in the past few months and ongoing. And this is why I need an intern, so come on. Previously, we've just basically downloaded what's online. It's a secular methodology. We've implemented it. And then we kind of were like, hey, but poverty really is about broken relationships, and you need to see it. But it was really undocumented and kind of ad hoc based on who is delivering the message. And so my new thrust in this next few months is to write a new field manual that will be used on all these levels that will be distinctly Christian and have the biblical integration. What that fully looks like is still being formed, but I wanted to incorporate the best practices of the SLA, those savings and loan associations, and be fully integrated. And so what that looks like without it being like proof texty, the day we're talking about loan repayments, let's talk about honesty and your responsibility to other people. Like, that just seems so cliche to me. And so, so I have a lot of ideas, but getting that on paper has been pretty challenging. So it's kind of information.
He's got free time coming up.
Oh, great.
We'll just write his sabbatical time for him.
So actually, like, writing this curriculum is really like where my heart is at. But I feel this little like deer in the headlights, because I have a desire for it to be like so unique to World Relief and so impacting to the people that I'm kind of, I don't know where to start. So yeah, right now it's kind of in design mode, but I'm hoping we're starting our program in South Sudan and Cambodia in the next 6 to 9 months. So I'm really hoping that when we start with them, we have a new manual that we can pilot and move forward with it. But what we have done, because a lot of our donors have really desired to see a biblical integration. So I wrote a 32-week Bible study, and it's kind of been this like tack on to the savings group. So they do their they come together, they do the Bible study, and then they do their savings program, which to me is like, at least it's something, like we're trying something, but it's not ideal because it's not integrated at all. It's like literally like a devotional, a separate book that they kind of start with, they pray, they take prayer requests, they discuss a passage, and then they do their activity of savings. So because of that, we've kind of like appeased some of the donors, but we haven't really achieved our full goal. So I think some of that Bible study will maybe migrate into the new manual, but it hasn't been a full design yet.
Good, nice.
I have time for one more question, if there is. So I'll ask it. So relationship with churches, how's that going?
Yeah. Some countries it's going really well. Rwanda, the relationship between World Relief, the church, and the programs is great. But we see a lot of problems like in Burundi. The pastors that we're working with are in really poor areas. The pastor themselves is not even getting paid. So he sees people in his community in a savings group, and they have all this money just sitting in that box. And so he comes to them and says, hey, I really need this loan, or we really need to use this money to buy instruments for the church. And the group is like, yes, pastor, we have to do everything the pastor says. Okay, pastor, we'll give it to you. And he kind of takes over using his authority in the community to take from this group. And that's like really breaks the principle of transparency and accountability, because you can't loan to someone who has no responsibility to you or the group. So we've had this problem. So trying to protect the group from the pastor, and that sounds really bad, but it's kind of needed actually, and to build up their own confidence to say, no, our policies have said that we can't give loans or we can't take money from the box unless it's for a member here. So we tried to do some of that. That's probably the worst that it can be, is the money being used in ways that the group doesn't want it to be. But on the really positive side, we have some churches that say, like, we love Savings for Life, and this is like totally helping us and our community, and so we support it. We're so happy it's here in our community, and we want to see it keep going. So we have a whole range of how it's working, but as part of writing a new field manual, I've kind of been designing how are we working with the local church in our new integral approach. And that is looking a bit more like, this is all World Relief volunteer. And it's sort of looking like replacing this person who's a World Relief staff with more people from the church. And so that would pull in some accountability of the church and would make it be hopefully more adapted as a church program or ministry, rather than it just be a total outside, World Relief comes and does their thing and then leaves.
If somebody were interested in the internships and wanted to respond to the call that you just made and come work with you, and would they still go through that, or would they contact you directly?
Hannah is the internship coordinator, and so she's really the one who handles all the logistics of it. But if you want any information about my specific internship, yeah, you can email me directly. But otherwise, more information about all our internships, including the Savings for Life internship, is on the website, which is listed on this pretty paper.
And it would be in Kigali?
Yeah, well, there's some freedom. Ideally, actually, to be based in Nairobi, but since I live in Kigali, some time would be spent in Kigali initially in training and whatnot.
I've heard that's a good plug.
Well, will you join me in thanking Courtney for